Hello there, fellow designers. Welcome to the Illustrator Challenges. My name is Julia Vaca and I'm your host. So today's challenge is going to be very fun. As usual, we're trying to experiment and have fun and learn some of the Illustrator tools along the way. So welcome everybody. Come say hi in the chat and ask questions if you have any along the ride. So, please check out the description below for some amazing links to our Discord and also to the starter file that we're going to be working on today, because I have prepared and created something for you to get started quickly. So feel free to do that. All right, let's jump right into this. Let's get into my screen and into the challenge of today. Let me actually put myself on the other side. There we go. Okay, so my friends, today is challenge number 3, create a photo from photo to color palette. So we're going to be creating color palettes from photos. We're going to be finding unique colors and create color palettes out of these 4 images. But you can, of course, feel free to use a self-shot image. Maybe you have done some photography in the past. Feel free to use one of those images. And today we are going to be using the eyedropper tool. And all you have to know about the other eyedropper tool is that it can sample color. All right, so where can you actually find the eyedropper tool? And you can find it by clicking the letter I on your keyboard. There we go, I. And you can see that this little sample tool, but right now I'm clicking option to drop the color somewhere, but you can click on it and you'll be able to see that this eyedropper tool is sampling the color for you. So once you sample, you can actually go and get the color code right here if you want. Okay, but what you can also do is you can create a shape first by going to our rectangle or ellipse tool, whatever you prefer, but I'm going to create a circle. And to make that circle perfectly round, you can hold shift while doing so, right? And now this circle can be adjusted to any of the colors that we sample with the eyedropper tool. So having the circle selected, we can either click on the eyedropper in our tool panel, or as I said, the letter I on our keyboard. This is the shortcut. And now we can go in and sample any of these color tones that we have here into our circle. So this is how I love to create color palettes for my clients. When I was freelancing, I would do that a lot because I would always create new brand identities. And sometimes you need a new, fresh kind of start. And an image is such a great start for that, because an image can set the mood. And once you have an image that sets the right mood, you can extract those colors and bring that mood into the color palette. All right, so we're going to get started with this image right here. And I'm going to be using my circle, but if you're starting from scratch, feel free to use the ellipse tool right here, or make your palette rectangles, whatever you prefer, but we need several shapes that we're going to be filling the color into. Okay, so I'm going to select the circle and holding shift make it a little bit smaller, and now I'm going to create a couple copies of the circle so that we have this color palette feel, kind of when you have a palette of let's say aquarelle colors that you paint with, right? So basically we're creating different colors for that color palette. Okay, so now let's copy and paste this circle a couple times so that we have multiple colors that we can sample. So holding option, clicking and dragging, we're creating a copy. You can also select the circle, click Command and C and Command and V. So there are multiple options to create copies. Use whatever one you prefer. You can also hold shift and select multiple, and hold option, click and drag, and copy three at the same time. Now you maybe saved a millisecond of your work time to do the copying. All right, so now we can drag this color palette down a little bit, and we can select each of the circles one by one and use the letter I on your keyboard for the eyedropper, or simply click on the eyedropper tool. And let's sample some of these colors. And after sampling, I'm clicking V to be able to select right? I'm going back into the selection tool to select the next circle. And then again, shortcut I on my keyboard, sampling the next color. And we have so many lovely colors in this image. You can see I'm sampling just colors of this pot. And as I'm going to the lighter side of the pot, my gray shade gets lighter over here. And as I'm going to the darker side of the pot, so where the shadow is, the shade gets darker. So this is also another thing that you can play with, okay? So let's take that one. Again, I'm clicking V on my keyboard for the selection tool, selecting the next circle, clicking on it. And again, I. And we're going to sample maybe a lighter green, just like that. And again, V, selecting the circle. I, sampling the next color. Maybe some of these booty tones right here. And this is a very lovely, creamy, warmy, creamy color that you can also sample, right? So this is what, why an image is so great, because it gives you such a variety. Here, alone in this pot, we have so many gray tones, warm gray tones that we can pick from, right? Even inside the pot, we see there are a lot of amazing colors. Even these little scratches of the pot also have colors, because an image contains of pixel, and if we zoom in, you can see that all of these pixels have a color, right? Each of these little boxes has a color that we can sample from. That gives us a lot of variety, and that's why I love images so much, because that gives us so much freedom to pick colors. Okay, now the next one. Again, we are in the selection tool, right? The selection with the shortcut V, selecting the next circle, and I for the eyedropper. Maybe we're gonna sample one of these darker warm tones here. Let's see. But I do want to create something that's kind of differentiating from the other colors, because I don't want my colors to be too similar. Maybe I'm going to sample one of these leaves and a little bit more on like the shadow side and create like a darker version of this one, okay? So this is really cool already. Now we can expand this color palette, and that's the trick that I wanted to share with you. And you can expand this color palette by working with the colors that we just sampled from the image. So I'm going to select all of these colors. Holding Shift, I'm going to deselect the background that I also selected by accident. All right, I'm going to make those a little bit smaller. And now I have these all selected. You can see they're all not very 100% aligned to each other, so they're not all centered. That's something I'm going to change within the align settings here. So in my properties panel, I'm going to, while having all of these circles selected, I'm going to click on horizontal align center. Now look at the circles and how they all align in the middle. And that's what I love to do, because that gives me that kind of the precision that I like to work with. Okay, now let's create a copy of all of these circles, and I'm going to show you how you can create an alternative of those colors. So holding Option, clicking and dragging, I'm going to create a copy of this. You can also use Command C and Command V. All right, so that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create darker or lighter shades of this color to create more variation and to experiment. Maybe those will be the colors that I actually will decide on rather than the colors that I've sampled. Okay, so I'm going to start with this yellow, and I'm going to double click into my color, into my fill color. And here you can see we have this amazing color spectrum of this specific color hue, which is this warm yellow, right? You can see it's located right here. Now we can go to the left side of this existing point, and we're going to make the color brighter, right? And we're going to desaturate it. Now, if we go down, we're going to make it darker, and we're going to keep the same saturation. So the color will still be very yellow, just darker, right? And if we go in both directions, so if we go diagonally to this side, we're going to make the color darker, and we're going to desaturate. So we're going to take away some of those yellows and move towards the gray direction. So this is how this works, and we can literally move around on the spectrum by clicking and dragging this point. And you can see how these colors compare from before and the after. So we can see maybe we want to go into like the warm gray direction that almost looks like a green, and I'm going to click that so that we have this variation of that color tone. Now let's go into this gray. Again, I'm clicking into this, double clicking into the fill color, and maybe we want to create a darker version of that. That might be another option for us to pick from. Now let's select this very bright green, and maybe we want to change the hue a little bit. Maybe we want to make it a little bit more yellow. So let's go and change the hue over here. Rather than moving the slider, the point around the spectrum, we're going to be moving the hue slider up and down, right? So we are going to go maybe more up or more down to the hue that we want to achieve. Maybe we even want to create a more saturated green. And you can see the comparison right here. So this is the before and this is the after. So after, we have this really, really bright green that stems from that same color that we have only by editing the saturation and also editing the hue a little bit. All right, so again, let's talk about saturation and hue, right? So saturation is when we go from this color to a more saturated color tone. So there is more color in it, right? It's a brighter color tone and it has more of that color. Now, if we decrease the saturation, you can see that this color is a little bit more bland and less saturated, okay? Now, if we change the hue of this color, so let's go back into this very bright green. If we change the hue, we're changing the color tone completely, right? So you can see that this green is changing into all of these different colors of our rainbow spectrum or color spectrum, okay? So, and then of course you can go from there and select maybe a less saturated color tone, okay? So feel free to experiment with these colors as kind of the starting point, and then go ahead and modify them and create your own. All right, my friends, let's see who is in the chat over here. We have Sweda, Luda, Wade here, Ashraful, Emir is here, and who else? Come say hi, come let me know how you're doing. Oliver's here. Cool, so many lovely people. Awesome, amazing. So my friends, now let's continue with this, and I'm going to do this really quickly because I do want to jump into the other images and I want to show you how different these color palettes can look like depending on the image. Okay, so let's continue with this one. We're going to make that one maybe a slightly lighter, brighter tone and give it more saturation. And here, let's take this color tone and maybe we're gonna make an alternative that goes more into the desaturated section and also into the brighter section. So that might give us a really nice, bright, natural looking green. Okay, now I'm excited about this one because this looks like a very interesting color. So I'm going to double click into this and you can see we're here in the orange hue. So we can totally go in and make this look more peachy, more saturated. Now look at this color palette. We have our original color tones that we pulled from this image, and we've created alternatives for those by playing with hue and with saturation and with also with brightness. And that's why it's called HSB, hue, saturation, brightness. Okay, so okay. All right, let's jump to the next one. And to save ourselves some time, let's take these color palette shapes that we have here. So I'm clicking on one, holding shift, and I'm going to select multiple of these. And to be precise, I'm going to select 6. And holding option, clicking and dragging, I'm going to put these down to the next image. And here, we're going to sample some of the colors in this amazing painting. Check this out. It doesn't have to be a photo. It can be an existing painting. It can be anything. It can be a texture. It can be, landscape. It can be anything that exists in picture form. Okay, you can also sample colors from existing illustrations or anything that you can literally find. You can take a screenshot from somewhere on the internet that you saw and pull that screenshot into your Illustrator document by simply dragging and dropping, and you can sample the colors from there. It's that easy to get new color palettes. Okay, so let's start here, and I'm going to select the first color, letter I for the sample. Let's sample this beautiful blue right here. Letter V for the selection tool, selecting the next circle. Letter I for another beautiful green tone that I found over here. Letter V for the selection tool, selecting the next circle. Then the letter I, sampling one of these very undefined kind of mixed colors, because why not? Look at this. I mean, this is all very, very interesting already. Now let's go to the next one, letter I, and I'm going to sample one of those darker blues maybe, or maybe I'm gonna go into this teal, dark green that's mixed up with a blue. All right, again, letter V, selecting the next circle, letter I, more into the warm orange tones, letter V, selecting the next circle, letter I, and maybe, and we can actually just go around like that, just sampling random colors, just in random spots, and see where, you know, where this takes us. And maybe we can find some really cool color tones that will fit into our color palette. Now look, this is the color palette that we've created with all of these beautiful color tones, and I can see this, you know, being a brand color palette that can totally be done. And then we can have maybe a logo saying something like, hey, this is your logo, let's try this out. And this will be the next step. When using the color palette for branding, I would probably take the colors and experiment with them, again with the letter I for the eyedropper, and then I will maybe create a rectangle in the background and see how colors play on top of each other. Again, letter I from my keyboard using this color, and then let's bring the rectangle to the back by right-clicking, arrange, bring to back. All right, and now we can experiment with the logo color and see which color works best on this background, right? So this is also already a really good color combination. And to build more contrast, you can actually still select this color and go into the fill color like we did earlier, and maybe we want to bring in more contrast because we want to combine these two colors in our design, right? So then what we can do is we can simply go in and make that color way brighter. And you can see now the contrast has improved and your logo will be legible on this color tone way better than before. So this color palette might be the starting point, but you can still grow and develop it while working on your brand color palette. All right, it doesn't have to be a brand color palette. You can also, of course, use these color palettes for illustration, for anything you want, and you know, build those out as you go. Okay, so let's jump into the next image. And again, I'm clicking on the first circle, then holding shift and selecting all the other ones by simply clicking on the additional ones. All right, holding option, clicking and dragging, we're going to the next image. And we're gonna maybe put these circles onto this right side right here so that we can have some space and we can see the colors. All right, now let's start sampling from this beautiful landscape image. And I'm clicking on the first circle, clicking letter I, and sampling one of these amazing, beautiful tones from the water that we have. All right, next circle, again, I was using the letter V to get to the selection tool. Click on the circle, letter I, and maybe some of the sky tones. And we can actually sample multiple of the sky tones because the sky, you can see, has multiple shades in it. It has almost like a gradient going from a dark blue to a light blue. So what we could do is we could sample even more color shades from here. And you can see wherever I sample, it comes out to a different color. So look at these beautiful 3 blue tones that I have just sampled from just the sky itself from this image. All right, now let's bring it some more contrast and let's sample some of these nature, these trees or forest that's in the background. So again, I'm using the letter V to select this one, to select the next circle, letter I, sampling one of these really amazing yellow tones that are here in those warm sunlit trees. Okay, and the next one, let's maybe go into bring in some deeper greens from our trees right here. So I have my circle selected, letter I on my keyboard, and I'm going to sample this beautiful forest green. Now look at that, we have this really amazing color palette that's completely inspired by nature. Look at that, and how beautiful, and how, you know, how these color tones look so perfectly matching together and working together. Yeah, nature is a big inspiration for colors for sure. So Let me know in the chat where you all are getting inspiration for your color palettes. That would be really interesting to know. All right, Suida is asking how can we join the daily challenges. So you can go into the description below and look, there is a Discord link that you can access. So this is our amazing Discord community that you can join, and just click on the link, register if necessary, and then you can submit your your challenges in Illustrator to the Discord under the #challenge. All right. So this is that. Let's get into our last one. And the last one is super nice because it's very different from the other 3 images. And you can see on purpose, I have decided to pick images that are very different, and we will have completely different color palettes kind of stemming from those images. So I'm going to, again, copy these 6 circles, holding Option, clicking and dragging, and I'm going to bring this in here. And you can see in this image, I have categorized my color palette into these 2 sections. One section is just blue tones, and maybe if you are working maybe on a brand design, maybe the blue can be your main primary brand color, right? Maybe if it's some cool natural product, and you know, the blue can be the primary color, and these colors could be the secondary colors, maybe to put into some details, maybe using them for text or other things. And you can, the same way you can do that for illustration as well. So if you have pulled this color palette, the blue could be your primary color, and then these could be the accent colors that you may be using for some of the details in your illustration. So again, these color palettes are super versatile and yeah, easy to kind of adapt to anything. Let's do our last image here, clicking on the first circle, letter I, and I'm going to sample one of these pink tones. Oh my gosh, these colors are beautiful, and those are super pastel-y kind of colors. And now let's create a little kind of transition of shades like we did earlier with the blues. So I have sampled some of this very light pink in the lighter parts of the feather, and I have sampled some of the darker shades in the darker sides of the feather. Now let's go in and maybe sample some of this purple, again using the letter I on my keyboard. I'm going to sample this purple right here, and look how beautifully these colors work together. Now let's go in and sample some of these bluish tones right here, and maybe create the same kind of feel, that color transition from light to dark. All right, and I'm again using the letter I on my keyboard and sampling the lightest color tone that I see, right? The next one. So this is a more systematic approach when you already kind of know what you need and you're looking for those colors within that image, right? So I already know that I want to create a color transition, so I'm going to go and look for those color tones within these feathers. All right, selecting the next circle, letter I on my keyboard, and I'm going into one of these more darker shades, and maybe I can find some shadows right here that have more of the darker color shade. So let's go and select the last one, and again I'm using the letter I on my keyboard, and I'm going to zoom in here into my pixels and select which color tone kind of can bring me exactly what I need. And maybe this color tone is actually located somewhere around here, so I can go in and look for those color tones in my image. And you can see this worked out totally perfect, and maybe I'm going to make this color just a little bit darker so the transition is more smooth and seamless, okay? Again, I'm using the letter I on my keyboard, and I'm going to sample one of these color shades. Now look how cool this is. We have this really nice pastel color palette that has some light shades, some dark shades, and some mid-tones. This again can be used for a brand identity, an illustration that you want to bring the specific feel of those feathers into, right? So my friends, and I would like you to select your favorite, and I think my favorite was this natural color palette, and bring this into your artboard right here. And we're going to select all of that, and holding shift, we're going to make it way larger than it is and place it in the center. And what I would like you to do is take these circles and place them underneath, then turn them horizontally, holding shift. You can make sure that the colors are turned in 45-degree angle. Yeah, sequences. So now let's spread these colors a little bit apart and move them so that they look like an actual color palette rather than layering them on top of each other, just like that. Now you can select all of these color tones and you can go into the align features, and here you can click more options and you can distribute the spacing between the circles. Now watch the circles, how they're going to distribute the spacing between each other. Boom, there we go. Now it's perfectly distributed, and before we had vertically aligned those. So this is perfect. Now you can go in and adjust your artboard to the size of the image that you have by using the artboard tool. So I'm going to simply drag the artboard just a little bit further down, and the artboard tool is located right here, and you can also use Shift+O to access it via shortcut. Okay, this is super cool. Look at that. We have this really nice image and the color palette that stems from that exact image. I'm hoping this was really fun for you to experiment with, and I'm excited to see some of your submissions in our Discord in case you want to join. Again, the descriptions for that are the links to that are in the description below. And I'm hoping you had fun with this challenge, and that you're going to be using this technique for your further projects in your future, and that it will be a helpful technique for you to create amazing new color palettes and make those into something even more amazing. All right, my friends, so I'm hoping this was really fun, and I will see you next time for the next Illustrator challenge. Bye bye.